I was sitting across from a kid young enough to be my grandson, watching him tell a room full of strangers that he owned 40% of my life's work. The conference table was cold under my palms. To my left, a mediator who'd introduced herself as Patricia Chen 20 minutes earlier was taking notes like this was just another Tuesday afternoon dispute. To my right, my attorney, Frank Morrison, who'd been my friend for 30 years before he ever became my lawyer. And directly across from me, 28-year-old Tyler Bennett, his fresh-faced attorney, and a lie so big I could barely wrap my head around it. My auto repair shop, Bennett's Automotive. 37 years of oil under my fingernails. 37 years of solving problems nobody else could solve. 37 years of building something from nothing. Tyler claimed his father owned 40% of it. Had owned it since 1987, apparently. News to me. The thing is, his father, Tommy Bennett, had been dead for 3 years. My best friend for 4 decades. Gone to a heart attack in his driveway, and now his son was sitting here trying to take a piece of everything I'd built. Let me back up. I started Bennett's Automotive in 1,986 inches, Corpus Christi, Texas. I was 24 years old, fresh off a 5-year stint as a mechanic for a dealership that treated me like a warm body instead of a craftsman. I'd saved $11,000 working double shifts and living in a studio apartment that smelled like someone else's cooking. That 11 grand was my ticket out. Tommy Bennett wasn't my business partner. He was my buddy from high school. We'd rebuilt a '67 Mustang together when we were 17. Stayed friends through my years at the dealership while he went off to become an accountant. Good guy. Steady. The kind of friend who'd show up at 2 in the morning if you called. When I told Tommy I was planning to open my own place, he got excited in that quiet way he had. Pushed his glasses up his nose and said, "Let me help." He didn't mean money. Tommy knew I had my savings and I was proud of it. He meant help the way friends help. He found me a location, this rundown garage on the south side, that the owner wanted to unload cheap. He looked over my business registration paperwork, made sure I wasn't screwing anything up. He even spent a weekend helping me paint the sign out front. That sign, said Bennett's Automotive. I'd named it after both of us. Bennett was my last name too, David Bennett, and having Tommy involved from day one made it feel right to share it. He laughed when I showed him the design, said, "People are going to think we're brothers." We weren't. We were better than brothers. We chose each other. Tommy never asked for ownership, never wanted it. He had his accounting firm that he'd built up over the years, had his own steady income, his own pride. But he was there. When I needed a loan cosigner in 1989 to expand to the second bay, Tommy signed. When I needed advice on whether to buy or lease equipment in 1993, Tommy ran the numbers for me. When my first marriage fell apart in 1996 and I was underwater financially, Tommy worked out a payment plan with my creditors that saved me from bankruptcy. Every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, every 4th of July, Tommy and his wife Linda and their boy Tyler would come over. We'd grill, drink beer, watch Tyler grow from a screaming baby to a quiet kid who preferred books to footballs. Tyler called me Uncle David even though we shared no blood. That was fine by me. In 2015, Tommy got diagnosed with early onset dementia. He was only 56. It came on slow, then fast. First it was forgetting where he'd parked his car. Then it was forgetting conversations we'd had the day before. Then it was forgetting who Linda was. By 2020, he was in a facility. By October 2021, he was gone. I spoke at his funeral, told stories about the Mustang, about how he'd believed in me when I was just a kid with a dream and dirty hands. Tyler sat in the front row next to Linda, stone-faced. I figured grief hit everyone different. The kid had just lost his father. After the funeral, Linda pulled me aside. She looked exhausted, like she'd aged 10 years in 2. She said, "David, I need to ask you something." I told her anything. She said, Did he have any ownership in your business?" The question caught me off guard. I said, "No, of course not. Why would she think that?" She shook her head, said Tyler had been asking about it, had found some old documents in Tommy's home office that mentioned the shop. I told her I'd be happy to clarify whatever Tyler needed clarified. It was probably just paperwork from when Tommy helped me set up the LLC or the loan co-signing documents. Nothing that meant ownership. Linda nodded, apologized for even bringing it up. Said Tyler was struggling with the loss and was probably grasping at things that reminded him of his father. I hugged her, told her to call me if either of them needed anything. I didn't hear from Tyler for 2 years. Then, in January of this year, I got a certified letter. Tyler's attorney, some kid named Jason Walsh, fresh out of law school based on the enthusiasm in his writing, was informing me that Tyler Bennett was claiming a 40% ownership stake in Bennett's Automotive. The letter cited multiple documented investments by Thomas Bennett between 1987 and 2015. It demanded full financial disclosure, a formal valuation of the business, and mediation to resolve this matter amicably before pursuing litigation. I read that letter 3 times sitting in my kitchen. Then I called Frank Morrison. Frank's been my attorney since 1994. He'd handled my divorce, my LLC restructuring, a few employee disputes over the years. He's old school, keeps physical files, writes notes in the margins of contracts. When I told him what Tyler was claiming, there was a long silence on the phone. "David," he finally said, "did Tommy ever invest money in your business?" "He co-signed a loan," I said, 34 years ago. I paid it back in full." "Anything else?" "He did my books for free for years. He'd buy parts sometimes if I was short. I'd pay him back within the week. He was my friend, Frank. Friends help each other." Another pause. "David, we need to find every piece of paper that shows what Tommy did or didn't have. Every receipt, every contract, every napkin you wrote a number on. Because if this kid has documents that show his father putting money in, and you don't have documents showing it was paid back, or was a loan, or was a gift, this could get ugly." That's how I spent the next 3 months. Digging through 37 years of files, bank statements from the 80s, when I still balanced my checkbook by hand, carbon copies of invoices, deposit slips. I found the loan paperwork from 1989, showed clearly it was paid off in 1994. I found receipts where Tommy had bought parts, and my handwritten notes on the back showing I'd reimbursed him. I found birthday cards he'd written me, Christmas cards, notes passed back and forth over the years. Nothing that indicated ownership, nothing that looked like an investment. Frank put it all in a binder. Said it was good, solid proof that Tommy was a friend and a helper, but never a partner. Then he said, "What documents does Tyler have?" I didn't know. That was the problem. The mediation was set for April 15th, tax day, which felt like some kind of cosmic joke. Patricia Chen's office was in a building downtown that tried too hard to look impressive. All glass and steel and uncomfortable chairs in the waiting room. Tyler was already there when Frank and I arrived. He'd filled out since the funeral, looked less like a grieving kid and more like a man on a mission. His attorney, Jason Walsh, had slicked back hair and a suit that cost more than my truck. We sat. Patricia Chen explained the process. This was non-binding mediation, a chance to present our sides and see if we could find a middle ground before going to court. She seemed nice enough, professional. Asked if we wanted coffee, water. Tyler asked for coffee. I couldn't imagine drinking anything. Patricia started with Tyler, said he'd requested to go first. Tyler nodded, pulled out a folder. "My father," Tyler said, and his voice cracked just slightly. "My father, Thomas Bennett, invested in this business from the very beginning. He believed in David when nobody else did. He put his own money on the line, his own reputation, his own time, and he did it because he believed they were building something together." I started to object, but Frank put a hand on my arm. Tyler continued, "I have documentation of multiple instances where my father provided capital to Bennett's Automotive. In 1987, shortly after the business opened, my father paid for commercial insurance to the tune of $8,400. Here's the invoice." He slid a piece of paper across the table. I leaned forward. It was an insurance invoice from 1987, made out to Bennett's Automotive, with a handwritten note at the bottom. "Paid in full, TB, Tommy's initials." In 1989, Tyler went on, My father co-signed a loan for $35,000 to fund an expansion. In 1993, he purchased diagnostic equipment worth $12,000. In 1996, he paid off a creditor that David owed $23,000 to. In 2001, he bought a hydraulic lift for $9,000. In 2008, he upgraded the computer system for $6,000. In 2012, he paid for a complete renovation of the waiting area, $17,000. With each statement, Tyler slid another piece of paper across the table. Invoices, receipts, bank statements, all showing Tommy's name, Tommy's money, going into my business. My chest felt tight. Frank was frantically writing notes. "That's over $120,000, Tyler said. Over 27 years. My father never asked for ownership papers because he trusted David. They were friends. They'd known each other since high school. My father believed his word, and their friendship was enough." Patricia Chen was nodding slowly, looking at the documents. "After my father got sick," Tyler said, and now his voice was shaking, "he told me about the business. He said it was part mine. He said he'd built it with David, that it was supposed to be our family's legacy too. He said when the time came, I should claim what was rightfully ours. He made me promise." Tyler looked directly at me for the first time. His eyes were wet. "I promised my father on his deathbed that I would honor his investment. 40% is actually generous. Based on the total capital contribution versus business value, I could argue for more. But I'm trying to be fair. I know you worked hard too, Uncle David. I'm not trying to take everything. I just want what my dad built." The room was silent. Patricia Chen looked at me. "Mr. Bennett, would you like to respond?" I didn't know where to start. My brain was racing. The insurance payment, the equipment, the renovation, it was all real. Tommy had done all those things, but they weren't investments. What were they? Frank jumped in. "Miss Chen, we have documentation showing that every loan Mr. Thomas Bennett co-signed was paid back in full by Mr. David Bennett. We also have receipts showing reimbursement for various purchases." "Reimbursement?" Tyler's attorney, Jason Walsh, spoke for the first time. "We've seen no evidence of reimbursement. Mr. Tyler Bennett has presented clear proof of capital infusion. Where is your proof of repayment?" Frank slid our binder across the table. "Here. Bank statements, deposit slips, receipts with handwritten notes." Patricia Chen started looking through it. Tyler and Jason huddled over their copy. I watched their faces. Tyler's expression didn't change. Jason frowned. "These handwritten notes," Jason said. "There's no way to verify these weren't added later. And the bank statements, they show deposits, but nothing indicating they were specifically repayments to Thomas Bennett." "The timing matches," Frank said. "Every instance where Thomas paid for something, within days or weeks, there's a corresponding payment from David." "Correlation isn't causation," Jason shot back. "Mr. Bennett ran a business. Money went in and out all the time. This proves nothing." Patricia Chen held up a hand. "Gentlemen, let's stay focused. Mr. Tyler Bennett, do you have any documentation showing an explicit ownership agreement between your father and Mr. David Bennett?" "My father operated on trust," Tyler said. "He didn't need a contract. He and David were like brothers." "But no contract," Patricia confirmed. "No," Tyler admitted. "But his actions speak louder than any contract. Why would he invest over $100,000 if he didn't have an ownership stake? What friend does that?" "A very good friend," I said quietly. Tyler's head snapped toward me. "Convenient story, Uncle David. My father invests his life savings into your business, and you claim it was all just friendship?" "It wasn't like that," I said. My voice came out rougher than I intended. "Your father helped me because that's who he was. He helped everyone. He didn't want ownership. He wanted to see me succeed." "Then why didn't he just give you the money?" Tyler demanded. "Why did he keep paying for things year after year?" "Because he was building equity. He was investing. He was being a friend." $120,000 worth of friendship? Tyler's voice rose. "Come on, David. Even you can't believe that." Patricia Chen intervened. "Mr. Tyler Bennett, I understand your position. However, Without written documentation of an ownership agreement, your claim is challenging from a legal standpoint. I have documentation of investment, Tyler said. My attorney says that repeated capital contribution can establish implied partnership, especially when there's clear evidence of shared business identity. The business is even named after my father. The business is named after David, too, Frank pointed out. Bennett is his last name. Shared name, shared investment, shared legacy, Jason Walsh said. Miss Chen, we're not asking for the moon here. We're asking for recognition of what Mr. Thomas Bennett contributed. 40% is more than fair. Patricia Chen looked at me. Mr. David Bennett, did you and Mr. Thomas Bennett ever discuss ownership? Did he ever ask for a stake in the business? I thought back across 37 years. Every Christmas, every barbecue, every phone call. No, I said. Never, not once. Did you ever offer him one? No, because he didn't want it. He had his own business, his own life. This was mine. But you accepted his financial help. Yes, sometimes. And I always paid him back. Can you prove that conclusively? I looked at our binder, at Frank's carefully organized documents, at my handwritten notes from decades ago. I thought I could. But looking at this now, I don't know if it's enough. Patricia Chen leaned back. Here's my assessment from a neutral standpoint. Mr. Tyler Bennett has compelling evidence of repeated financial contribution from his father. Mr. David Bennett has evidence suggesting, but not definitively proving, repayment. Without a clear contract, this becomes a question of intent and interpretation. What does that mean? I asked. It means, Jason Walsh said with a smile, that Tyler has a legitimate claim, and if we can't settle this in mediation, we will absolutely pursue it in court. It means, Frank countered, that this could go either way, and litigation will cost both parties significantly. Patricia Chen nodded. Which is why I'm here, to help you find a middle ground. Tyler, what would a settlement look like for you? Tyler glanced at his attorney. Recognition of my father's 40% stake. Either David buys me out at fair market value, or I become a 40% partner going forward. The business is worth approximately $2.8 million, Jason added. 40% of that is $1.12 million. We'd accept that as a buyout, or Tyler is prepared to take an active role in operations. I nearly laughed. You want to work in an auto shop? You've never changed a tire in your life, Tyler. I can learn, Tyler said, or I can hire someone to run my share. Either way, I want what my father built. Your father didn't build this, I said, and I couldn't keep the heat out of my voice anymore. I built this. Your father helped me, yes, but it was my vision, my work, my 37 years of getting up at 5 in the morning and going home at 8 at night. Tommy was my friend, and I loved him like a brother. But this business is mine. Then you should have no problem buying me out, Tyler said calmly. I don't have $1 million sitting around. Then we become partners. I don't want a partner, especially not someone who's trying to steal from me. I'm not stealing. Tyler's voice rose to match mine. I'm claiming what's rightfully mine. Gentlemen, Patricia Chen said firmly, let's take a break. 15 minutes. Cool down. Think about what you really want from this. Frank and I stepped into the hallway. He was sweating despite the air conditioning. David, this is bad. I know. His documents are good. Too good. And your reimbursement evidence is circumstantial at best. I'm not giving him $1 million I don't have, and I'm sure as hell not giving him my business. Then we might end up in court. And David, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't love our odds. I leaned against the wall. 37 years. 37 years of breaking my back, of solving impossible problems, of building a reputation as the guy who could fix anything. And Tommy's kid, who'd never set foot in my shop except to visit, was about to take it all. There has to be something, I said. Something that proves Tommy never wanted ownership. Frank shook his head. Unless you have a document where Tommy explicitly states he's not a partner, I don't know what would help. A document. I thought about Tommy's home office, about Linda saying Tyler had found papers there. What else had Tyler found? What had he left behind? We went back in. Patricia Chen looked hopeful, like maybe the break had inspired compromise. Tyler looked confident. Jason Walsh looked like he'd already won. "Have we had any thoughts?" Patricia asked. "Yes," I said. "I have a question for Tyler. You said you found documents in your father's office about the business. What else was in there?" Tyler frowned. "Excuse me? Your father's office. What else did you find?" "I don't see how that's relevant," Jason said. "Whom or me?" Tyler shrugged. "Files about the accounting firm, personal papers, tax returns, insurance documents." "Why? Did you find his medical records?" The room got very quiet. Tyler's expression shifted, just slightly. "What? Your father's medical records? From when he was sick?" "David," Frank said quietly, warningly. "What does that have to do with anything?" Jason demanded. I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out a single folded paper. "This," I said, "is a copy of your father's medical records from 2015. I'd gotten them from Linda 2 weeks ago. Called her, told her what Tyler was doing, asked if she had Tommy's medical files. She'd been horrified, said she had no idea Tyler was pursuing this, that she'd told him to let it go. She'd sent me everything she had." I unfolded the paper on the table. "This is from his neurologist, Dr. Sarah Martinez, dated April 23rd, 2015. It's the diagnosis: early onset Alzheimer's disease, with specific notation that Tommy was already experiencing significant memory impairment and confusion." Tyler stared at the document. So, I said, "according to your timeline, your father was still making investments in my business in 2015 and later, the computer system in 2008. But more importantly, you said he told you about his ownership stake. You said he told you it was your legacy. When did he tell you that, Tyler?" Tyler's jaw tightened. "I don't remember exactly. During his illness, I repeated, when he had Alzheimer's, when he couldn't remember his own wife's name, when he thought he was still in high school half the time. That's when he told you he owned 40% of my business?" "He had moments of clarity," Tyler said, but his voice had lost its certainty. "Did he?" I pulled out another paper. "This is from Dr. Martinez's notes, from June 2016. Patient experiencing severe delusions, including claims about business ventures he never pursued and partnerships that never existed. Family reports he's convinced he owns a restaurant, a car dealership, and a construction company. None of these claims are real." I looked at Tyler. Your father's mind was going, "Tyler, it's a tragedy. It broke my heart watching it happen. But him telling you he owned part of my business doesn't make it true. He was sick." Tyler's face was red. "You're using my father's illness against him?" "I'm using the truth," I said. "Your father never wanted ownership of my business when he was healthy and in his right mind. The only time he claimed ownership was when his brain was betraying him." "That's not," Tyler started, but I kept going. I pulled out more papers. "Here, service records from Bennett's Automotive. Every single item you listed as an investment, I can show you was a service I provided that Tommy paid for, like any customer. The insurance in 1,987? I recommended the policy. Tommy needed the same coverage for his firm. We went in on a group rate together. That $8,400 was his portion, not a gift to me." Tyler was shaking his head, but I didn't stop. "The diagnostic equipment in 1,993? Tommy's firm bought it, used it for 2 years, then sold it to me when they upgraded. I have the bill of sale here, showing the price we agreed on. The creditor payment in 1,996? That was a loan, with a payment schedule, all documented here. The hydraulic lift in 2001? Same thing. I found a used one. Tommy bought it with his credit card because mine was maxed out. I paid him back over 6 months. Here's every check." I spread the papers across the table. "The renovation in 2012? Tommy's firm did the work. They renovated offices. I was a client. Here's the contract, signed by both of us, showing the payment terms." Patricia Chen was looking through the papers. Tyler's attorney was frantically scanning them. "Everything your father paid for," I said, "was either a business transaction, where I paid him back, Or it was him buying something for himself that he later sold to me. Or it was a loan that I repaid in full. I have 37 years of documentation. I have every receipt, every check, every email. Not because I didn't trust Tommy, but because that's how you run a business. Tyler's face was white. You're lying. I'm not, I said, and my voice was gentle now, because seeing him crumble wasn't giving me any joy. Tyler, I loved your father. He was the best friend I ever had, but he wasn't my business partner. He never wanted to be, and I think you know that. He told me, Tyler whispered. He was sick, I said softly. His brain was sick. And I'm sorry, Tyler. I'm so sorry you lost him. And I'm sorry his illness made him say things that confused you. But I can't give you something that was never his to give. Patricia Chen cleared her throat. Mr. Walsh, do you have any response to this documentation? Jason Walsh was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, We'll need time to review these materials. Take all the time you need, Frank said. Tyler stood up suddenly. This is bullshit. You're twisting everything. You're making my father sound like he was crazy. He wasn't crazy, I said. He was sick. There's a difference. You used him, Tyler said, his voice breaking. You used his friendship, took his money, built your little empire, and now you're hiding behind his disease to keep it all for yourself. That's not what happened. You're a liar and a thief, Tyler shouted. My father trusted you, and you stole from him. Tyler, Jason said, trying to calm him. No! Tyler grabbed his papers, shoving them back into his folder. We're done here. I'll see you in court, David. And when a judge hears how you exploited a sick man's confusion, how you manipulated your best friend, you're going to lose everything. He stormed out. Jason Walsh gathered his things more slowly. Mr. Bennett, he said to me, my client is upset. I'll review your documentation and be in touch. Then they were gone. The room felt very empty. Patricia Chen looked at me. That was difficult. Yeah, for what it's worth, your documentation is compelling. If what you're showing is verified as authentic, I don't think Tyler has a case. But he's going to try anyway. She nodded. Grief makes people do irrational things, and lawyers make money from irrationality. Frank started packing up our materials. David, we should go. In the parking lot, Frank lit a cigarette, even though he'd supposedly quit 5 years ago. That was rough. Yeah, you did good in there. Those service records, that was smart. Where'd you find all of that? I've kept every piece of paper that ever came through that shop, I said. Never knew why. Guess I know now. The medical records, though, Frank said. That was hard to watch. The kid's hurting. I know. You could offer him something. Not 40%, but something. A settlement. 10 grand. 20 grand. Call it a gesture in honor of his father. And validate his claim? No, frame it as a gift. Out of respect for Tommy's memory. Might make the whole thing go away. I thought about it. Thought about Tyler's face when I'd brought up the Alzheimer's. Thought about Tommy, about all those years of friendship. Maybe, I said. But Tyler didn't take a settlement. His attorney called a week later, said they were dropping the claim. The documentation was too strong, and they'd consulted with another lawyer who said they'd lose in court. Jason Walsh actually apologized, said he should have vetted Tyler's claims more thoroughly before sending that first letter. I should have felt relieved. I'd won. The business was mine, clear and simple. But I didn't feel like I'd won anything. Linda called me a few days after that. She was crying. Said Tyler had moved out of state, taken a job in Denver, wasn't speaking to her. Said their family was broken, and it was all because of me. I tried to explain, told her I'd never wanted to hurt Tyler, had never wanted any of this. She hung up on me. I haven't heard from either of them since. That was 7 months ago. The shop's doing fine. Business is steady. I hired a new mechanic last month, kid named Marcus, who's got good hands and a better attitude. We're looking at expanding again, maybe adding a third bay. The bank's willing to loan me the money. No co-signer needed this time. But sometimes I'm there late at night, doing paperwork in my office. And I think about Tommy, about how proud he'd been when I first opened, about how he'd always said he knew I'd make it, about how he'd never, not once in 40 years of friendship, asked me for anything except my time. And I think about Tyler, growing up calling me Uncle David, losing his father to a disease that stole his mind before it took his body, and then losing whatever idea he'd built up about his father's legacy. I keep the medical records in my desk drawer now. Proof that I was right. Proof that Tommy's claims were the confusion of a dying brain, not the assertions of a secret partner. Proof that I earned everything I have. Sometimes I take them out and read them. Dr. Martinez's careful notes about Tommy's decline. The dates matching up with when Tyler claimed his father had told him about the ownership. The clinical description of delusions and false memories. I was right. The documentation proved it. The business is mine, legally and morally. But I'd give every dollar of it back if it meant having my friend back. If it meant Tommy was still here, still clear-headed, still the guy who believed in me when nobody else did. If it meant Tyler didn't hate me. If it meant Linda would still talk to me. I learned something from all this. I learned that documentation matters. That friendship, no matter how deep, needs to be protected by paper. That trust and a handshake aren't enough in this world. I learned that being right doesn't always feel like winning. And I learned that you can spend 37 years building something, and it only takes one certified letter to remind you how fragile it all is. How easily it can be threatened by someone who thinks they deserve a piece of what you made. How quickly love can turn to anger when money's involved. The shop's door still says Bennett's Automotive, still named after both of us, even though Tommy's gone and his son thinks I'm a thief. I thought about changing it, making it just David's Automotive or something else entirely. Frank said it might be smart, avoid any future confusion, but I haven't done it. Because despite everything, despite the mediation and the accusations and the broken relationships, Tommy was my friend. The sign was for both of us. And changing it now feels like erasing him. So it stays. Bennett's Automotive. My business, my name, my friend's name, my 37 years of work, and my one piece of advice to anyone who'll listen. Get it in writing. Every promise, every loan, every handshake deal. Get it in writing. Because friendship is beautiful and trust is precious. But neither one holds up in a conference room across from a lawyer who smells blood in the water. I was right to fight Tyler's claim. I was right to show those medical records. I was right to keep my business. But sitting here now, alone in my office at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday night, looking at the empty chair where Tommy used to sit when he'd stop by after work, I don't feel like someone who won. I just feel like someone who survived. And I miss my friend. That's it. That's the story. Make of it what you will.